Well, howdy there, travelers. You all look mighty tired and hungry after having come off a road that long and dusty. Luckily, you got here just in time. I'm about to make a pot of my personally famous farmer's stew. Don't worry. I'll take you through the whole process of how to make it, and if you give me a hand, well, I'll even throw in a bowl for free. Mug of cider, too. Afterwards, when we're chowing down, you'll have to tell me about the last adventure you and your party came from. Don't worry, though. The ingredients for this aren't very expensive either. Won't run you more than a handful of coppers. Just in case you want to make it for yourself while you're out and about in your next travel. Well then, let's get started, shall we? Now then, here's all the things that you're gonna need for this recipe. A 1/4 cup of flour, all-purpose. A tablespoon of salt. And pepper. About 1.5 pounds or 0.8 kilograms of beef sirloin steak. You can get it pre-cut into stew format, or you can get it in large pieces and cut it up yourself, like I'm going to do here. But don't feel like it's better or worse either way. Some vegetable oil, though olive oil works just as well. A cup of beer, preferably a dark beer of some variety. Beef broth, 4 cups worth. You can either get it in a liter container or concentrated like this, or even use bouillon cubes. Though I wasn't able to find those at my store, so I will be using concentrate. Some paprika. A large yellow onion. 2 large carrots. And 4 yellow gold potatoes. Yukon gold potatoes are best, but honestly any kind of potato will do. And lastly, some fresh parsley. Though, if you can only find dried parsley in your area, don't worry too much. Fresh is just best. Alright, now that I've told you everything you're going to need, let's start preparing it one at a time. First, we have to prepare the meat. Take a large mixing bowl, add the flour, and add about 1/3 of the salt and pepper. You might have to add a few grinds. Then stir it all up, and then set it aside. Now for the meat itself. First, cut it out, get it out on the cutting board. Now, take each piece and cut it into about 1-inch sized pieces. Good enough for stew. Make sure you have a sharp knife for this. You could hurt yourself with a dull knife. Then take the meat that you've cut up and add it into the flour. Do this with all of the meat that you have. Once you've done that, throw away the tray your meat came in and immediately wash your cutting board. Once you've washed your cutting board and knife, set them aside. We're going to need them soon. But not right this second. For now, take the meat and the flour. Make sure you washed your hands before this, and mix them thoroughly. Once they all have a coating of flour on them, we're going to take it over to the stove. Make sure you bring your oil with you. And once again, wash your hands. Now then, you're going to need a large, deep pot for the stew. We're going to set the heat to medium-high, 6 or 7 on most ovens. And then, we're going to add the oil. Just a good dollop of it. Exact amounts are important, just make sure the entire bottom of the pot gets covered. And then we're going to let that oil warm up for a few seconds. Once the oil has warmed up, you're going to remove the lid, take the meat that you've mixed with flour, and add about half of it into the pot. You're going to need to break up the meat into individual pieces, so make sure that you mix it well, and make sure that each piece is in contact with the bottom of the pot. Otherwise, they won't all cook all the way through. Once you have them all separated, put the lid back on, and we're going to let it sit for a few minutes. Once a minute or so has passed, you're going to go ahead and give it a good stir, trying to get new parts of the meat to touch the bottom. And once again, just make sure that it's all evenly spread out on the bottom. Your meat should start to turn from that reddish white to more of a brown color. We're going to do this for a few more times for a total of 5 or 6 minutes. Alright, once you've stirred it a few more times, go ahead and turn the heat off, take it off the burner, and you're going to transfer the contents. Ooh, that's a simmering. Maybe we'll let it sit for a half minute or so to cool down and stop bubbling. But once it has, you're going to take another bowl and transfer the cooked meat into that bowl. Once you've transferred it, your meat should look something like this. A nice brown, flaky color. Alright, set it aside, and then do the same thing with the other half of the meat that we prepared. If they're giving you any trouble, remember to give your familiar a treat. You gotta keep them happy, or they just cause mischief. And remember to be fair amongst all your familiars, otherwise they might start planning to rebel against you. Go on, take it. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Alright, let's return to the cooking. Once you have all the meat that you've prepared set aside, you're going to take your cup of beer and add it into the now empty pot. Go ahead and try and scrape up the bits of stuck to the bottom beef that will be, well, stuck to the bottom of the pot. You won't be able to get it all, but don't worry, it'll come off as you continue to cook. Just get the biggest chunks. Once you've done that, take the meat and add it back into the pot. And turn the heat back on to a low-medium heat, somewhere around 2 or 3. Next, you're going to take your beef broth that either you've gotten in a liter canister or concentrate, and add that into the pot. Make sure if you're using the concentrate to add the water. Finally, add a teaspoon of paprika to the mix. And you're going to want to give it a good stir. Make sure it's all mixed together. Alright, now, put the lid back on. We're going to check in on it every 5 minutes or so to make sure that it's just at a nice simmer. You don't want it to be boiling, but you also don't want it to be flat. Find that sweet spot. It'll be different with every oven. Now then, we're going to let that sit like that for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on how tender you want the meat. And while we're waiting for that to happen, let's get to the vegetables. Alright then. First, the potatoes. You're going to want to wash them and cut out any dark spots. But once you've done that, you're going to take them and cut them into nice cubes. Now take that, set it aside in a bowl, and continue on with the rest of the potatoes. You can do this either with the skins on or skins off. While technically it's safer to skin the potatoes first, my mother always taught me all the nutrition is in the skin. So I like to just give them a thorough wash and leave them on. Alright then, let's move on to the carrots. This one is nice and easy. Just thoroughly wash them and then cut them into little pieces, little discs. Don't make them too thick. You want them to cook enough that they're softish, but also not so much that they completely lose their bite. And take those and set them aside as well. Now, the onion. If you have cats, you'll want to take extra care with this, as cats are... well, onion is highly toxic to cats. So you want to make sure that you properly dispose of everything. And don't let them get too close to it. They shouldn't want to take a bite out of it, as cats don't really like onion, but just take a little extra care. Now, let's get this all cut up. Now that my eyes are properly weeping, let's get that into a bowl. Finally, the parsley. First, you're going to want to take some time and remove the stems. You can eat them, but they're a bit more bitter than the rest of the parsley. You can also just pull the leaves off. That might be faster. Now, once you have all the stems removed, we're going to cut it up. You only need about a 1/4 cup of parsley, but, well, I'm just going to prepare this batch all at once and add a 1/4 cup once I have it chopped. Be careful with this. You'll want to sort of bunch it up with itself before beginning to cut. Oh, that is a lovely flavor and smell. This really enhances the dish. Dried parsley does work, but it's just not the same as fresh parsley. Go ahead and fill a measuring cup with a 1/4 cup of it, and set that aside. The rest of you is going in a bag. Right, now that we have all of our vegetables prepared, let's head back over to the stove. All right, our stew should be just about done simmering with the meat. Now, one at a time, we're going to add the vegetables. Just go ahead and pour them on in. And make sure you use every bit. It's been a lean harvest this year, and we don't want anything to go to waste. Now the potato, and the carrot. We're gonna wait to add the parsley. Now, give it all a good mix. Make sure it's well incorporated. Go ahead and take the rest of that salt and pepper from the beginning and add it. And once you're sure it's well and truly mixed, go ahead and cover it again. Turn the temperature up just a little bit. And we're gonna let it simmer for about half an hour to soften those vegetables. Right then, while we're waiting for that to happen, why don't I tell you a little bit about how this particular dish came to be. It's a short but sweet tale to tell. Now, this dish was invented by humans back in the middle of the Fourth Age, way down south in old Alliance territory. Legend has it that one quiet night, the king at the time, a paladin named Arthur Goldheart, was delayed in his travels and came to rest at the end of the day at a small farmer's village, the name of which has been long lost to time. He and his entourage came to the local tavern and asked for a meal. Now, the tavern keeper got into a bit of a panic, for he had few spices and fewer ingredients to work with, for there hadn't been a single spice caravan in some time. This was in the middle of a war, you see, and more exotic ingredients were both rare and costly. Only the nobles and wealthy could afford much beyond garden vegetables. Still, he was skilled in his craft, and using nothing more than the fruits of the village itself, crafted this dish for the first time. The king absolutely loved it, and it is said he knighted the tavern keep on the spot for creating such a delectable dish, though that part of the story may be apocryphal. Either way, word of the village quickly spread, and the recipe that had come from it. And in the centuries since, it has become a staple of human cuisine all throughout the continent of Arkenheimr and beyond. It's a favorite of halflings as well, who are said to make it from time to time in their caravans, though they of course like to add sugar and spices, as well as practically a quart of honey. One may as well try to turn back time after all than separate a halfling from their honey. But, enough talk. I do believe the stew is almost done. Shall we take a look? Once you've let that all simmer for a half hour, you're at last going to take your parsley, dump it into the stew, take it off the burner, and give it one final good mix. And with that, you should be done. You can add salt and pepper to taste at this step, but I enjoy it like this. Let's get it out into a bowl. Make sure to set something down so you don't scorch your countertop. And let's get it out into the bowl. Ooh, look at that. That is good. Get a bit of liquid in with that. Heaping piles of carrot, potato, onion. Oh, all right. Let's give it a second to cool, and then we'll give it a taste. Well now, after all that hard work, I think it's about time that we tasted the fruits of our labor. Let's give this stew a taste, shall we? Get a nice spoonful of all the ingredients. Every time I make that, it's just as good. The beef is so savory, the carrots add just the right amount of crispness, the onion, just a hint of sweetness from it. There's nothing as hearty as this for after a long day of work, either in the kitchen or on the road. Why don't we get all of you a bowlful? I think you've more than earned it. I'd also like to thank the real cooks behind this dish. You see, I've been lying to you all. This is not in fact called Farmer's Stew, though I like to call it that for my own poor purposes. This is Traveler's Stew from the official D&D cookbook, Hero's Feast. There'll be a link down in the description for any of you who want to get a copy for yourselves. It's more than worth it, let me tell you. Though I will be making pretty much every dish from this cookbook. So, stay tuned to the channel, and we'll get new videos out when we can. Well, thank you all very much for your patronage. My name is Benny the Barkeep, and I'll see you in the next one, where I think we'll be making hot spiced cider. This is good ale, though. Alright. Cheers. I would also like to thank Max Miller of Tasting History for giving me the inspiration for this idea of making fantasy cooking videos. My beautiful fiance for giving me the strength to carry through every single day. And of course, my 3 idiot cats for constantly screaming for food and treats. It wouldn't be the same without them.